Hey everyone, welcome back to Explore with Kojo. Today we are talking about 10 of the crazy culture shocks that I had as an American that moved to Poland. Overall, I am Polish, so my nationality is Polish, and both my mother and my father are both 100% Polish. So, I was born in the United States of America, and I have lived there for 13 years until I suddenly decided to move to Poland, and I have lived here for around 5 years. So, I pretty much traveled at a very, very young age. I was around 13 years old, so it was a bit different it was a bit shocking for me moving here, and it was definitely a wild culture shock. So I'm here in Wilanów. This is near the Wilanów Palace at this beautiful park here in Warsaw, and I just wanted to discuss some of the crazy 10 shocking culture shocks I had. So let's get to it. So my first one is Sunday shop closures. So that's definitely number one on this list. In Poland, it is traditional and overall it's by law that most shops, grocery stores, and malls are closed on Sundays. So Sunday is more or less treated as a holiday here in Poland. So many of the shops, many of the not restaurants are mainly open, but more shopping and I guess recreational activities such as at the local malls here in Warsaw or in Poland in general are completely closed all day on Sunday. And that is definitely something that was crazy to me, and I treat it as a culture shock because in the US, every single Sunday, 7 times a week, everything is open in the US. And same thing even in Dubai or in the UAE as well. Most shops are open 7 days a week. So it's very, very weird, or it was a very wild culture shock for me that most stores and shops are closed on Sundays. Sundays in Poland are pretty much treated like a holiday. So mainly during these days off, people and overall the government has decided that they want our citizens here in Poland to spend as much family quality time away from work and to spend it with their family, or overall it is a little bit more religious here in Poland, so it kind of gets treated Catholic, in a Catholic way on why Sundays are also closed, so then citizens and residents can spend their day going to church while also spending time with their family. So that is a major deal here for the government in Poland. So many citizens spend as much time with their family as possible and have days off. For instance, if you live in an area where you have a house, for instance, and you have a green area, it is a big no-no for someone to even cut their grass on a Sunday. Their neighbors, your neighbors, will actually kill you when they find out that you are mowing the lawn on a Sunday, because it is treated like a peaceful day. It's treated like a peaceful day where no one can work and everybody just chills and takes the day off. So that's why it is a major big deal here on why Sundays are closed, and overall just many people just go out and spend time with their family. The second point I want to add on what was such a big culture shock is public holidays. Public holidays are treated completely different than from the US here in Poland. So for example, these public holidays are deeply rooted from Catholic origins, meaning that most of the holidays here are related religiously. So, for example, we have Easter, we have Christmas, of course, those are also religiously rooted from. But at the same time, we also have, on August 15th, there was actually a holiday celebrating it was something religious. I really don't remember, but I remember that the day on August 15, every shop, every mall was closed, and we even have a video posted about it on how holidays look like here in Poland, because everything is also closed, similarly on a Sunday. So holidays are truly treated differently, like a big major event where everybody just stays at home and celebrates this holiday. And due to the fact that they are related from Catholic origins, many people go to church on those kinds of days. They have, or I guess, a kind of ceremony for these holidays on certain holidays. So many people go to church and they celebrate these holidays through that because they have off from work. So in comparison to how it is in the United States, usually holidays aren't really rooted from Catholic origins or anything religious related. It honestly depends, but on most holidays everything is open. Or For instance, in the US, we have it that like on, for example, Independence Day or on the 4th of July, maybe shops close a little bit earlier, but they are still open. So that's the difference between Poland and the US on public holidays. Number 3, cash is still king, meaning Poland is very cash friendly. So society, especially like in small towns or even in markets, people usually pay with cash or expect you to pay with cash. So even usually in bigger cities like Warsaw, like we are here, and in Krakow, people are more oriented to pay with their credit card, their debit card, or even use Apple Pay. That is definitely normal here and more, I guess, culturally appropriate for everybody to pay with their debit card instead of cash. On the other hand, Poland is also not the smallest country in the world. So there are different towns around Poland where they're really small oriented, and there are smaller towns with older standards. So therefore they pay more with cash. So when you do visit Poland, I definitely authorize you to carry some cash on hand, which was a crazy culture shock for me, because when I lived in the US, I barely had any cash with me. My parents barely used any cash anymore because the society was just changing onto electronically or using debit cards because they were more efficient. On the other hand, when I visited markets here, I wanted to pay for, I don't know, eggs or vegetables at the market, and they were like, they only accept cash. And that was such a big, weird culture shock for me because I feel like it's so outdated. So that is definitely something I have noticed. And it's honestly important to carry some cash around, as cash is still a big deal here. Cash is still a very big deal here, and people definitely use it all the time. Number 4, the language barrier. So yes, Poland is a European country, but overall, like I mentioned before, bigger cities like Warsaw and Krakow are kind of expanding on the language barriers, such as not speaking as much Polish, but also orienting and knowing English as well. So if you were to walk around Warsaw and wanted to go to a shop and you didn't speak Polish, you could definitely get along and definitely speak English with the cashier. On the other hand, smaller towns, they don't even know how to say hello in English. So I would definitely authorize that, like, Poland is still slowly expanding, but at the same time, it's still a little bit set back from the entire world because a lot of smaller towns don't speak English and they only critically speak Polish. So that is definitely something to look out for if you're ever planning on visiting Poland, is to definitely keep in mind and know some essential Polish phrases, such as how to say hello, how are you, thank you, goodbye, etc., etc., etc. So then you can communicate in times when maybe the cashier or someone that you're speaking to doesn't speak the same language as you. And that was a very big culture shock for me when I first moved here from the US, because even though I am Polish rooted, living in the US, I always constantly spoke English, and I didn't go to a Polish school except speaking with my parents in Polish. So when I moved here, it was so crazy to me and so bizarre to me, because everybody would actually make jokes and say, oh my God, your American accent is so crazy, you know? And I would be like, yeah, because I never grew up here. I don't have the same accent in Polish like regular Polish citizens do, or my friends did. So it was definitely something that I had to get used to, and I definitely upgraded my Polish while living here, which is definitely something that is so important, is that when you move here as a international person or as a tourist or someone that's an outsider, you definitely learn Polish faster. You start to use their phrases, and living in Poland, you can definitely learn Polish the fastest way possible because everybody speaks Polish around you, as it is also a European country that isn't entirely expanded as, for instance, Germany or other countries around us. So I would say the language barrier is definitely there. Number 5, quiet Sundays and holidays. So as we mentioned before about those Sundays and holidays, people really value family orientation and quietness on Sundays and on holidays. People take these times from work off to chill, relax, and have a quiet, peaceful day. They really, really hate when people don't respect that. So as I mentioned before, if you were to mow the lawn on a Sunday or on a holiday, your neighbors wouldn't appreciate that. They would definitely be angry with you, and they wouldn't appreciate that, as it is a holiday. It is a Sunday for them, so they treat it as a holiday for them to relax and take the day off from work, instead of, not living in the best conditions and hearing someone lawn mowing. So Polish people are definitely some people that respect their days off and respect their Sundays and their holidays. That is definitely something to keep an eye out for. And honestly, it was definitely odd for me because, as I mentioned, usually in the US, everything was open on Sundays. Polish people tend to feel that Sundays are days for relaxing, and it could be beneficial, but it also could be a con as well. And Americans really, truly care about vibrant weekends. So it would definitely be a crazy culture shock for someone that isn't Polish and doesn't know the standards here, to know that things are closed on Sundays and on holidays, because they're so used to the vibrant weekends of their days off that they could just, go wild and have no problem with that. And that was definitely a weird thing for me, that whenever I would go on walks on Sundays on the weekends with my family, everybody was going on walks on Sundays on the weekends, and you would rarely see anybody out in the city center going to party or going to drink or going to do, crazy activities or shopping. That was definitely a crazy culture shock for me. Number 6, direct communication style. Whew. Guys, this is gonna be a big one, because honestly, it was a little bit crazy for me when I first moved here on how I thought Polish people are a little bit rude. I don't know, but as an American, or even in the US, when you would go to the US, everybody was very polite. There are very polite exchanges. You walk around and you are in very good touch with your neighbor. You guys say hello, how are you? Constant, chit chats at the supermarket, for example, when you're waiting in line. That is a totally normal thing in the US. On the other hand, in Poland, that's a big no-no, because people in Poland are very straightforward and direct. So meaning that whatever they have to say, they will say it. So I have had multiple instances that I thought were so bizarre to me when I first moved here, that I was on the bus and the bus driver was driving and he hit he broke, oh my gosh, my English, you guys can see I'm living in Poland and my English is getting worse every day. So he stopped the bus super quickly, and there was an old lady on the bus, and she was holding on and she fell down, she almost fell down. And the old lady was like, "Hey, what you're doing? I almost fell down. Please be careful when you're driving the bus." And the bus driver stopped the vehicle. He stopped the vehicle. He got out, and he went up to the lady. He was like, "Maybe you should sit down next time, because you're on a bus. You shouldn't be yelling at me because I'm just doing my job." So they had a full-blown argument because the woman almost fell down. So as you can see, they're very direct and sometimes aggressive conversations, because Polish people truly say whatever they think on their heart, and they might not be polite sometimes. So that's definitely something that was crazy to me, that there are so many frequent arguments and people say things to you on the street, and say whatever they feel. So that's definitely a crazy direct communication style that I had a weird culture shock on, because people in the US aren't usually like that. People are very kind, polite. I'm not saying that Polish people aren't kind and polite, but there are more direct communication and confrontation here in Poland that I definitely had to get used to. Number 7, public transportation. So in Poland, especially in Warsaw, I would say, and in Krakow as well, people truly depend on public transport. Most of the city, most of the population here in Warsaw or even in Krakow, use public transportation. And a lot of people drive as well, but they find it not efficient for them to drive, since Warsaw is a big city. There's the metro, we have the tram, we have the bus, we have the train, we have everything. And you can honestly get anywhere around town with public transportation, which is so efficient, because public transport here is only three zloty, so it's not even like $1. It's not $1 at all, so it doesn't even end up being $1 yet, but it is very cheap, and you can get around the entire city. Obviously it might take a little bit longer, but it is so efficient and so quick that you could definitely rely on using public transportation when living in Poland, especially in Warsaw. When I first moved here, I didn't even know how to buy a ticket for my tram, and I went on the tram without a ticket, and I didn't even know how to validate it. I didn't know how to do anything, so it was definitely a major culture shock for me, as Polish people are more dependent on public transportation rather than using cars, while in the US people are more dependent on using cars rather than public transportation. So as you can see, those are the two opposites, and that was definitely mind-boggling for me, as even when I lived in the UAE, it's very car dependent there as well. To get around Dubai, let's say, you really need a car, especially if you live in farther districts such as Damak Hills 2 or Silicon Oasis. There's no crazy efficient public transportation use there to get to the city center, so you would have to use a longer route, etc., while it's a 20-minute drive. So that was definitely something that bothered me when I lived in Poland and then I moved to Dubai, is that I was so used to using public transportation in Poland that when I moved to Dubai, I switched over to the car, using the car as well, like transporting through car. So it was definitely mind-boggling for me that these three countries couldn't all integrate together to fit my needs. I know. So it really bothered me. But that's the thing that kind of shocks me a bit, is that countries really look differently on transportation. So for example, bigger cities like Dubai, they have a couple of metro lines, but do they go everywhere? Unfortunately not. While smaller cities like Warsaw, they have public transport everywhere. You can get anywhere here in Warsaw with public transportation, which is so efficient to me. And in New York, for example, you can use public transportation in New York, but for example, in other cities like Oklahoma, you couldn't use that efficient public transportation like in New York. So it's definitely all very confusing to me as someone that has lived in 3 different countries. So yeah, I would consider that definitely a culture shock for me. Number 8, respect for tradition. So I would say Polish people really respect their tradition. They really respect their culture. They really respect their tradition. And it bothers them when people don't respect that tradition of theirs. So for example, folklore or Polish traditional dresses or Polish attire, or Polish food, Polish holidays. People really respect that, and they take that for granted on how their country was set up. Even after World War II, they really value their traditions. For example, we are here in Wilanów Palace, and this is a palace here of like kings and queens from generations ago, and it still lies here, and many people travel here and they come visit the Wilanów Palace all the time to come visit the history, the culture, the traditions. So that is definitely something that they have really valued on, and they really value their history. While places like in the US, we don't really have that kind of tradition. We don't have those kind of older places or older historical monuments that truly tell our history all the way. Of course, we do have those monuments and etc., but rooting back from kings and queens in those royal times, we don't really have that in the US. So that was definitely something that I really appreciated, and I call it a culture shock because I appreciated how I can learn the history of where I deeply am rooted from, which is Poland. So I really appreciate that I could come visit these places and come to these beautiful parks and go see, beautiful monuments here that show Polish history. Number 9, food and drink customs. Ooh, now is something big, guys. Polish people love their food, guys. Let me tell you that. Polish people love their food. So we have thousands of soups. We have thousands of different cuisines and different dishes and different drinks that are so deeply rooted in Poland that we celebrate them on every possible holiday. So for example, on Christmas we have we have beetroot soup with different styles of pierogi and different salads and different fish and different things. And even on Christmas, it's like we have certain days where we can't even eat meat because of religious standards. So, you know, for example, vodka, which is a big deal here. It's like the most common drink here in Poland is obviously vodka, and it's very deeply rooted here in Poland. And whenever people think of Poland, they think of vodka. So although vodka isn't the only thing that is truly a custom of food and drink here in Poland, we also have a popular soup called żurek, which is a white soup. I don't know how to translate it in English exactly to tell you guys, but it has sausage, egg, and different kind of ingredients in it, and it's the most popular soup here. It's one of my favorites as well, and it is commonly eaten on Easter here in Poland. So we usually have żurek, the special soup, before we have our main dish during Easter. So that is definitely the kind of customs that I like, because I can also say that it's not basic, that it's something that is a tradition that will always live on in my family and in Polish families in general, which honestly I really appreciate. It's a very nice custom. And we also eat a lot of meat, potatoes, and bread. That is definitely something that I really appreciate in the culture here. Even with my US friends, they don't have food and drink customs like they do in Poland. So it's definitely something that I am very appreciative of, because I love my Polish food, and I find it crazy to me that a lot of Americans don't have this kind of tradition on foods, as they aren't as in detail or as like insane like Polish food is. American food is very laid back and very standard, and I really appreciate, it was a culture shock for me, as I really appreciate that everyone around me here in Poland has the same customs and traditions of food and drink, which I love. And last but not least, 10, healthcare systems. So there is public healthcare here in Poland that every single citizen here has. We have public healthcare here, but on the downside, there are really long waiting times for certain treatments. Therefore, people opt for private healthcare instead, which is faster, more reliable, and more, I guess, in depth on the different treatments that you have in that private healthcare. So it's definitely something that I am not deeply educated on, but when I did find out that we have public healthcare here, it was honestly very beneficial, because I will be honest, I don't really know the whole healthcare, how it works or anything like that, but it was definitely a culture shock for me that in the US, I really didn't hear that there was much public healthcare there. I may be wrong, but in Poland, it's completely normal for someone to have public healthcare, and people that do have private healthcare just need a little bit of an expansion on certain health needs that they need. So that is something that I really appreciate here, that my parents didn't really have to worry about healthcare because we automatically had it, which was a major benefit, and I really appreciate it. So that's what I would realize is the difference. Or even in the UAE, for example, in the UAE, you would have to get private healthcare, and it is also very expensive. So the fact that Poland also provides public healthcare really, truly is beneficial. And I think the government, of course, there are many problems with the government here in Poland, but I think there are some benefits here to it. For instance, we have 500 plus, meaning that Polish kids and Polish families, moms, until the age of 18, every single child gets 500 zloty, which is around $100 a month, for their needs. So for example, these parents get for each child. So for instance, my parents got 1,000 zloty a month, which is around $200 for me and my brother before I turned 18. So those are really beneficial things that also the government has helped, is because some families may be struggling, and that even little push of money is very beneficial for children. And I haven't noticed it in any other country except Poland, which I think other countries around the world should really reinforce that the government really supports these children here, as some families may be struggling. So that is something that I really appreciate in this country.